Hey students, in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have done a video review or told you I was going to do a video review because it's proved to be a lot harder to execute than I'd planned. But everything in the review is stuff you should have already gone over, known, answered questions about, reviewed, etc. through your WISE runs, but I'm going to walk you through the main stuff you need to know. What's on the screen now, what you've seen before, is going to be on the test. You need 6 H2O molecules, 6 CO2 molecules, and light energy to convert those molecules into sugar, a chemical energy that the plant will use for a couple different things, and 6 O2 molecules that the plant will then put into the environment. This is all starts at the sun. The sun's electromagnetic energy to light energy goes to the chloroplast in the plants. In the chloroplast is where this chemical reaction takes place and is where the glucose is produced. Once the glucose is produced, it pretty much goes two places. It goes stored in the leaves, stems throughout the plant, and it goes directly to the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of each individual cell and helps the other organelles carry out their functions to help the plant function as a whole. So some glucose goes to mitochondria, and then it powers the mitochondria. The mitochondria will power the rest of the organelles and their functions. The glucose that's stored in the stems and leaves will be stored in the plant. For the plant later, it's say overnight, the sun goes away and it's not producing new sugar to power the mitochondria. The plant can carry out some of its other functions by using the stored glucose in the leaves and stems. So this can help the plant keep functioning overnight. This could also help keep a plant functioning throughout a 3-day weekend, like Mary in the WISE story, when she goes on a 3-day weekend and she comes back and her plant that has been in the dark is still alive, even though the leaves are not quite as green. And so this stuff that's stored in the plant, it's really stored in the plant for the plant's sake, for the plant's long-term survival. But of course, many organisms consume the plants and get their energy from those plants. So this plant's stored chemical energy in the leaves and the stems is consumed by the rabbit in this case, or us as humans also eat plants. But then we get that stored chemical energy that goes to our mitochondria. Our mitochondria power the rest of the organelles in our body's cells. All the cells in our body of all the different types, liver cells, heart cells, skin cells, etc. Everything is powered by the chemical energy that we consume. And that's how the rabbit survives, or how we survive. But I'll get to that in a minute, how we consume plants and animals both. So if you've gone through all 3 WISE runs, the 3 WISE projects, and you've done them correctly, you should not even need to review. There's nothing that's going to be deeper than that surface level stuff. Like in the first run, 6.8 was the My system you had to complete here. That is pretty much what is here. But you can go back and review WISE run, the first one we did. Then in the second one we did the reflection. This is where we kind of focused on Mary's question. She wants to know why her plants didn't die when she forgot to leave the blinds open when she went on vacation. Well, after a few days, you should be able to explain that the plant was using the stored glucose to carry out the rest of its functions. You should also be able to explain what would happen if Mary was gone for an entire summer. What would happen to the plants then? But you have practice with that with this, where you start the light and the light's on, and I don't know why the weeks are progressing, but you can see, there we go. Now you can see that the light's shining on the plant. Glucose is being created. It's stored in the leaves. It's stored in the sweet potatoes that are growing in the soil, and lots of glucose is being produced as time goes by. But if we turn off the light source, or we close the shade and there's no more sun, however you want to think about it, the plant's in the dark, well, the plant is going to try and survive. It's going to try and continue to carry out all of its functions of respirating and surviving. So it's going to consume the glucose that was stored in the leaves, in the stems, and the sweet potatoes. And as long as you've done this simulation and answered the questions that go with it, then you should know how this works. The leaves, it will consume the glucose out of certain parts. Those parts will die and fall off, and it will reduce its size. It's still trying to survive, so it's pulling glucose now from the sweet potatoes that were underground in the soil. And eventually, the plant will try to survive as long as it can, but eventually it will use up all the glucose it can use up, and the plant will die. Other questions on the test that you might want to be aware of. You should know this. This is the basic top main stuff. How do we depend on the sun? How do we get energy from the sun? You could talk about how well we grow vegetables, which we eat directly, or we grow vegetables, which we feed to animals, which we then eat the meat of, and basically we get all of our energy that allows us to function day in and day out from the sun. Another main thing from run number 3 was the tadpole. Again, I might not use this exact story, but you still need to connect the sun to the organism that's consuming the energy that really originally came from the sun. And you just need to pretty much connect A to B to C to D, and it's pretty much the original one we learned. But a few alternate scenarios where you might have to talk about, like I said, Mary's conundrum with a 3-day weekend, or what would happen if Mary was gone for many, many weeks. Everything you need to know is in the WISE runs. Review those. If this video has not been, I will also share, along with this video, this document again. Thanks for listening. Good luck.